Welcome, everyone, to the Sonoma Spiel. My name is Tim with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. In music, sometimes you have an intro, and you have an arpeggio, and you have your callbacks, and I don't know these words, but the good news is I don't have an intro. I had a good one. It was really good. I forgot it. I need to start writing these things down. But the reason why I bring up music is because this week I have a very special guest. In fact, this week I have two very special guests, and this time I actually do mean it, because they are three-time offenders. They are back for more punishment to tell us a lot about the Valley of the Moon Music Festival. I have, hello, Tanya Tomkins. How you doing?
Good.
Good. And Eric Zivyan, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Did I pronounce your names correctly again?
Yeah.
I was so close? Okay, good.
Really close.
Valley of the Moon Music Festival, right?
Yep.
That's the
I'm at the right podcast?
we're in the right place with the right people.
In music, do you have introductions on music, or what do they call the beginning part of the song?
Yeah, they
prologue?
call it an introduction.
An introduction.
Yeah, there's often an introduction, and sometimes there isn't. Sometimes you just plunge into the main
Just go right in the
theme.
music.
Yeah.
But you go to a musical and like you're waiting.
Oh, like the overture.
Oh, overture,
Yeah.
that's the word.
Yeah. Like
okay.
that's at an opera too. There's like the overture where the orchestra plays.
Yes.
Before the curtain opens.
And you don't know when they will start.
Exactly.
But it just keeps going and going
Yep.
and stuff like that. Much like my intros. Thank you. All right. Valley of the Moon Music Festival. You guys are integral part of it. You're the founders, producers,
Founders and co-directors.
and co-directors.
All of the above.
Okay. Can you please tell me what is the Valley of the Moon Music Festival for the people who missed the last two podcasts that you were on? Go.
Okay, so the Valley of the Moon Music Festival was created about 11 years ago because we're going into our 11th season this summer. Super excited that we made it through 10 years.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Because there was like the pandemic in there, we're a nonprofit, all
Yeah.
of the above. And so we're really thrilled that it's gaining some traction, certainly among like young musicians all around the country and some in the world that we'll be bringing in. But what it is, it's a chamber music festival. So for those of you who don't know what chamber music is, that's smaller groups, so not orchestra, no conductors. Chamber music written for the chamber, written for a room. Like a string quartet is a very common chamber music genre. So that's two violins, viola, and cello. But there's also pianos. And so we do chamber music. So there's all the great composers wrote a lot of chamber music. So
That's very popular during, give me the time frame wise.
so for us, the time frame is like around 1800 through the 20th century.
Okay.
We go
And
before 18,
a little
maybe
bit
like
before,
1750 sometimes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually have a piece of Bach on the program.
That's probably even earlier than
Even
1750.
early.
But that's
That's
unusual
more
that we go
18th century.
before
Got it.
1750.
Okay.
But the really unique thing about the festival is that we play on historical instruments. And
Right.
what does that mean? It means that they're set up in the way that they were set up when the composers were writing the music for those instruments. And
Okay.
there are huge differences.
Explain those to me.
So, for instance, I'm a cellist, and Eric is a pianist. He can talk to you about how the piano changed. But like for stringed instruments, if you go to San Francisco Symphony or the San Francisco Opera and you see those guys playing, they're going to be playing with steel strings. And their cellos and violins are going to like pop out to the back row.
Okay.
But that's not what Schumann, Schubert, Mendelssohn, Beethoven, they didn't have those kind of strings back then. Theirs were made from raw gut. And it sounds like a small difference, but it's actually an enormous difference because it makes you play completely differently. And then when you're playing with the historical pianos, you also play completely differently. But just in terms of what our festival is about, so there are many festivals all over the world that perform on historical instruments, but those are mostly Baroque festivals. So that's like Vivaldi, Bach,
That's all
Brandenburg.
before 1750.
Right, and so
Got it, okay.
we're probably one of the only festivals in the world, there might be one other, that performs music like starting around Mozart all the way through the 20th century. Like this year we were mentioning Quincy Jones. We
Right.
got
We're going
him.
to talk about this. Is amazing. Because
Yeah.
I thought you guys were all about, fluffy collars and powdered wigs.
Only that's only the beginning of what we do, starting at like
Yeah.
1750 to 1775, which is a very small part of what we do. So we go all the way up to the present day because actually gut strings were used all the way through more than half of
Really?
the 20th century. Famous violinists like Heifetz used only gut strings, and so it's totally historical for us to play 20th century music on gut strings.
When metal strings Or is it actual metal, like coiled around something or whatever. I don't know much about them.
Okay. It doesn't really matter, but yeah.
But does it change? You said it changes the sound.
Oh, totally.
Is it
Totally
louder or is it?
Yeah, it's louder, and so before Eric talks about the pianos, which actually has a huge impact on the whole thing, I just want to say that the other thing that we do, and our biggest mission of this festival, is to nurture and mentor the next generation of chamber musicians. So we've got all these incredible young artists that are coming in, and the reason they're coming, they're like graduates of Juilliard, they're recent graduates of Juilliard, or they're getting their doctorates, or they're just starting their careers, and they're all like top-notch. Some of the best performers in the country are coming because they're really fascinated by this. Like they may have, worked on their Beethoven sonata over and over again, but they never heard it with the actual piano that it would have been written for and with these strings, and it's a really different approach, and it just it actually, instead of it sounding like stuffier and older, it sounds sort of more radical and more modern in a way than like the steel strings and the Steinway.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let me get Eric, tell me about the piano, because I don't. Was the piano invented around the same time as cello and violin?
No, I'll address that. I just want to say one more thing about the strings is that I think some people get confused because they know that famous players of string instruments play in very old instruments, and that's true. But those old instruments have been refurbished and steel strings have been put on them. Some of their shapes have been changed even to make them like modern instruments. There's very few of those old instruments that are actually in more Baroque or classical style. So the real difference is made not necessarily there's some great modern instruments that almost are getting close to the old ones now. But the real difference is the gut strings, make a big difference, whether they're on an old instrument or a new one.
A new one, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of the pianos, same thing. So one of the pianos we bring up is a reproduction of a piano from 1795, and the other two are original, one from 1841 and another one from 1895 that actually belongs to UC Berkeley. The other two we own. So the difference with those is that there's no steel frame. That's a big thing. So the strings are not under as much tension, and they have a quieter but a more articulate sound. Much quieter, much more articulate. It has the same dynamic range, so it can sound very powerful, but it's just the different decibel level.
Eric, are they the same size as a normal piano?
No, they're smaller. So the keyboard of the old one from the copy from 1795 is maybe less than 2/3 the size of the modern piano, and the 1841 instrument is getting closer, but it's still got some keys missing.
So there's less number of
fewer keys, right? So the 88 keys is the modern piano. That's
but Mozart didn't know those other keys.
Right. Even our modern type piano from 1895 that we bring from UC Berkeley has a couple of keys missing. So it maybe has 85 or something. But
are there pianos with more than 88 keys? Like
there are
new keys.
There are, because Busendorfer started. I don't know about Fazioli, but Busendorfer started making pianos with more keys, but it didn't catch on. So you can't really write music just for Busendorfer because not everybody has a Busendorfer. So they just have all these extra keys that nobody really uses.
You should tell that story about when you were a kid playing Mozart and you thought.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I thought, Mozart didn't use the range of the entire piano. He was just kind of conservative and just wanted to use just a little bit. Yeah. But actually, it's just because his piano was just 5 octaves, only 5 octaves instead of 7.5, which is the modern piano.
I never knew this.
Oh, yeah.
Is so someone said, let's just add more octaves and more.
Right, they wanted more. Beethoven wanted more, and also the piano makers themselves wanted to make it more. And it was the time of the Industrial Revolution was when the piano was really changing. So you asked when was the first piano? The first piano was actually from the 1600s, but it wasn't very popular for a long time. It was only in the mid 18th century, mid 1700s, that the piano started to come into its own because it was hard to make. I mean, the concept was really good because you could get a whole gradation of dynamics from soft to loud instead of just depending on what stop you pulled on the harpsichord, you get either loud or soft, but nothing in between. So the concept was really good, but it was hard to make them sound really good for a while. But then by 1750, 1775, pianos really started to come into their own, and the harpsichord started to go out of fashion because the piano was just so much.
So the harpsichord was a predecessor.
Right. And that's what you would hear at a Baroque music festival, like what Tanya was talking about. That there's so many, a lot of harpsichords.
We don't have any.
We don't have any.
Is that the tagline for Baroque? A lot of harpsichords.
Yeah.
When
and
we
ours is harpsichord free zone.
That's right. Not allowed. allowed.
Exactly. We definitely are harpsichord free zone. We've never done a performance on harpsichord.
okay, and just
when
so
a
I
harpsichord
remember-
is called for, you do it on forte piano. It sounds really good
Is
anyway.
harpsichord the thing? Like, did Mozart write for a harp? I don't know this stuff.
Clavichord.
Clavichord.
Yeah, he wrote for a clavichord,
Right,
which is
okay.
very interesting because harpsichord, it plucks the strings.
Oh.
And the piano, when it developed, it's a hammer.
Right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
like Hammerklavier in German, and also he was saying from soft to loud, forte piano in Italian. That's what we call these pianos,
strong
forte
piano.
pianos.
Right.
Okay.
Well, loud soft.
Loud soft.
Forte piano.
Oh, right. 'cause
Yeah. I don't know why piano is called a piano because that means soft.
Well, it's short for pianoforte.
Oh, I
It
see.
is.
Okay.
So I
When
mean,
you're selling them door to door, you got to be quick and they'll slam the door in
they're
your
kind
face.
of like computers, right? Like you
Yeah.
had to keep upgrading your model.
Right.
So
and they were
everybody-
they were being upgraded all the time. So
Yeah.
the difference between the one from 1795 from 1841 is just like amazing. And then the modern piano kind of came into its own in the 1860s or so. So the 1841 is getting close, but it still has the all wooden frame. And the other thing about them that's important is that the strings go straight down. So if anyone's ever looked into a modern piano, the strings cross each other, the bass strings and the top strings. They cross each other, and I think the main reason is to save room because they were getting more and more strings, more and more keys, and they didn't want the piano to take up all that room, and so they thought, oh, this is a good idea. We'll just cross them. But it changes the sound, and the straight string instrument is the registers, the top and the bottom and the middle register all sound different from each other because they're isolated from each other, and it's a really nice sound. Some performers of modern day want this have commissioned, like Daniel Barenboim is a pianist who's commissioned a Steinway piano to be straight strung because he thinks it sounds better. So, and we do too.
You can make custom-made piano. Okay, hold on. Are you guys professors of music or something? Because you like really know your stuff, or like
Well, we've
you're
been doing
super
it for a little while.
right. I mean, you're professionals, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, yeah.
you make a living off of music.
We do.
We're not scholars though, but we
No,
know
right.
some things
Wow,
here. and there.
yeah.
But we do know a lot about historical instruments. So I lived in the Netherlands for 14 years.
Okay.
And that's where I got a lot of my education. And there was a huge so-called early music movement there when I got there in the 80s and 90s. And in fact, when I moved back to the States and I met Eric, I dragged him over to the Netherlands and we went to this really incredible studio there of this piano restorer. And that's where we got the 1841 piano from Vienna.
You bought it from the Netherlands.
from the Netherlands and it got
Came over in a
shipped
plane.
over. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But the really great thing, like, so I'm a cellist, and so most of my life was spent on trying to play loud enough to play over that big machine behind me, that big black piano,
Right,
which
right.
is just so loud. Like he was saying, that every voice on the piano has a different feel to it. So on the modern piano, the treble, the higher notes are just as loud as the low and the middle, and so you're just fighting to get through that sound.
it.
You get on one of these pianos that the composer
They wrote the
wrote
music
it for, they knew what they were doing. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, like this is fun and easy. And it's not like I'm having to struggle, to make
You're like, I'm trying to play cello here.
exactly.
Come on.
Because the gut strings are a little bit quieter than the modern steel strings,
Okay.
but not as much. The difference with the piano is huge. So when you're on modern, first of all, the string players really struggle to be heard, and then the pianist has to struggle because they have to make sure they play soft enough so that
they can be
the
there.
strings can be heard. And then some things get lost, like you don't hear as many of the nice little notes that are in the piano part, because otherwise, if you hear them all, they're going to be too loud. So you have to suppress it to such an extent. But actually, on a period piano, that's not true. You actually hear everything, but it's soft
right.
enough.
Well, let's get into that then. So people have coming to the festival,
Right.
which this year's July 12th through the 27th
Exactly.
here in Sonoma. It's at a lot of different places.
Yep.
Take me through what the festival is about and what people can experience when they're here.
Okay, well, we've got every year we have a theme.
Okay.
And this year's theme is liaisons. And no, it's not dangerous.
It's not dangerous liaison.
I mean, maybe there's some aspect of danger somewhere here and there. But what that is that every concert sort of tells a story of the friendships or the competition or the mentoring or the whatever it is between the composers on each program. So starting with the opening concert on July 12th, most of the concerts over these 3 weekends of concerts are at the Hanna Center Auditorium.
Got it.
At the Hanna Center right there at the circle between Glen Ellen
Just
and
about 8 minutes outside of the plaza or
Exactly.
2 or 3 minutes outside of Glen Ellen.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah. And so most of those are at 4 p.m. The Saturday concerts have a lecture before them, so you can learn a little bit more about what you're going to hear. After every concert, there's a really fun reception with a local winery that's going to be pouring their wines for people, and then you can like mingle with the musicians. We're bringing in about 25 musicians from all over. Then they're fabulous this year as well. They're always fabulous.
Is the lecture, is it the musician lecturing, or is it like you bring somebody else?
Yeah, it's called the Blattner Lecture Series.
Okay.
That is sponsored by
The Blattner family?
Kimberly
Kimberly
Blattner,
Blattner, okay.
And so we've got a Harvard musicologist, we have somebody from Stanford, and we have somebody from UC Berkeley. And they're all specialists in what they're talking about. So that first concert is Fanny and Felix Mendelssohn. So Felix Mendelssohn is very well known to classical musicians, but his sister Fanny is less well known, and she's an incredible composer. And that whole family was very influenced by Bach, and so there'll be some of his music on there too. Anyway, so then each concert tells a story. We can go through them all if you want to.
Well, I do want to call it one.
Yeah, please.
Wagner and the French, a love-hate relationship.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are good at programming stuff, by the way. This is very clever, because it could just have been like, Wagner and France or something.
No.
But what was this love-hate
I
relationship?
think you should talk.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, and it's all in the context of the general history of the period. Is that nationalism was starting to be a thing in the 19th century, but music was always kind of a universal language. But then, yeah, in the 19th century, people started to get interested in their own countries.
Right.
But Wagner was like on the cutting edge of music in general. I mean, he was a revolutionary composer in terms of the forms that he used, in terms of the harmony, and in terms of the kind of way that the drama and the music and the words all went together. So people were really stunned by Wagner, and the French initially just loved Wagner. I mean, they thought he was the best thing that ever happened to music, and so a lot of French composers started to write more like Wagner. And there was always a little bit of a French flavor to it, because they grew up in a different area, and it had an effect on them. Then around the time of the Franco-Prussian War, I mean, then there started to be this nationalism, and people started to feel like, well, we really want to have a French music. And so they started to feel like, well, we loved Wagner, but we want to get that a little bit out of our music. We want to do something different. And Wagner was very lush, very romantic, and so the French decided they wanted to be a little bit more, more like the Impressionists in art. Like they were Impressionists in music as well, like Ravel and Debussy. A little bit more formal, and about color, not so much about emotion
Not like
all the
this big
time.
stories,
Right,
Wagner's
exactly.
big
So
mythologies, right?
and not taking itself so seriously. That was a
Yeah.
big thing. Not taking itself so seriously. So Wagner really took himself incredibly seriously, and the French wanted to make it more about giving people pleasure when they listened.
Okay.
So that's sort of what happened. And so this program, we put together 3 pieces. We have the polar opposites, but the thing is, Debussy began by being inspired by Wagner. But by the time he wrote the piece that's going to be on this program, that was the year that he died, 1917, the violin sonata by Debussy is about as far from Wagner as Debussy ever got. So we have those as the poles, and then we have a beautiful, lush piece by Wagner. There's not very much chamber music for Wagner. This is actually a transcription by someone else of a beautiful orchestral piece called the Siegfried Idyll, and it's beautiful. So, so we'll have that, and then the Debussy. So we'll hear the contrast first, and then we'll hear something in between. Now, Chausson was a slightly older composer than Debussy. He died younger too, but they were friends. And Chausson never completely got over the influence of Wagner, and so his music sounds, it's like a cross between the two. It has the Wagner emotion, the romanticism, some of the harmonies, but then it also sounds a little bit more French too. So we're showing this sort of cross.
And the thing about
between the
that
two.
Chausson piece is really unusual. It's a violinist soloist and a pianist soloist, and then a string quartet accompanying them. So it's like a concerto, but he uses the string quartet as kind of like an orchestra. And it's incredibly, wildly virtuosic. It's an incredible piece. I highly recommend people to come hear that July 13th. It's
Yeah,
really fun.
I've never even heard.
Chausson.
Okay, thank you. This is amazing. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I see. After this, I see one called Alfresco Concert.
Yes.
And was that like an Italian composer, or does that mean something else?
Means outside.
Oh, okay. There
Yeah,
you go. So
alfresco.
tell me about the Alfresco.
Okay,
What
so
does that
we
mean?
got a couple of concerts that are not at the Hannah Center.
Okay.
And actually, we have 3. So we just call that our alfresco series, meaning outdoors.
Got it.
So that one is at the La Luz Foundation. It's on a Thursday evening, July 17th. That is like pay what you can.
Okay.
It's mostly $2 and up.
That's great.
And we have a series at La Luz, which is all Spanish-speaking composers and also presented in both English and Spanish.
Oh, great. Okay.
And there'll be like fun food there, and those are really great events. There's going to be a guitarist, Mark Teichholz there. There's also going to be a sort of folk to Baroque kind of band called Beneath a Tree that has been there every year that we really like them. So anyway, yeah, I think that's going to be, we have a Venezuelan violist coming from New York. He was one of our past apprentices. That means one of the people that come and study with us.
Okay.
And so he's going to be coming and playing some Venezuelan tunes as well. But that's going to be really great. And then back to the Hannah Center, the second weekend of concerts, July 19th and 20th. The 19th, there will be a lecture as well. Before that Saturday concert at 4 p.m. is called Nadia Boulanger, 20th Century Influencer. Now, she is the woman in Paris who taught absolutely everybody. Now, people today, they don't really know who Leonard Bernstein is anymore.
Oh, okay.
But we're old enough to know who he
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, he wrote West Side Story. Yeah, so he went and studied with her, his colleague.
Oh, so she's modern.
Yep, 20th century.
Modern. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so that's why
Okay,
Quincy
now I feel
Jones.
old. Look at that. You're
Yeah,
like
20th
yes, Tim.
century.
In the past 5 or 6 decades, like
Some
you know,
of us were born
not
in the
that long
20th
ago.
century.
Okay, this
like-
is. Look, so this woman, Nadia Boulanger.
Yeah, so she was a 20th century influencer. So she taught even
And she
Quin-
lived to be quite old, so she
Yeah.
taught a
She
lot
had a
of
lot of
people of
chance.
different
And a lot.
generations.
And
Yeah.
so she taught everybody. So like there's this amazing Argentinian tango influenced composer Piazzolla who went and studied with her. We're going to do some of his music. It's really cool. There's
That's where the Quincy Jones comes in. The
Quincy Jones studied
Bossa
with
Nova.
her, if you can believe that.
Okay,
He
so
went
during a bossa nova kind of period.
a quartet version of it.
Okay.
Stravinsky. And then her teacher is Fauré. That's a French composer. So we'll end the program with his
Great.
beautiful piano quartet.
Wait, what kind of instrument did she play? Or was she like
She
all of them kind of
Play a
teacher?
little piano, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
and she would have played on a modern-ish piano.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have one of those for that. And are we doing the Fauré on the modern-ish piano? The
Yes.
Chickering, right?
Yeah.
So that's from 1895.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
that one's built like a modern piano, but it sounds still like an older
different.
piano, which is why we like it.
okay.
Yeah. And
Wait, how many pianos are you going to have?
3.
All right, very
not
good.
quite enough,
And you're
but-
moving the one that you have at home up here?
We're moving
Yes, we
all
have
3 of them.
two from home and one from UC Berkeley are all getting moved in the same truck up here.
Oh my gosh, a very slow moving. So you like don't bump the truck. Okay.
Exactly.
Actually, it's always scary how fast they get
You
there,
know-
but I don't ask any questions.
Exactly.
You know who Chopin is? He
Yeah.
wrote all that beautiful piano
I
music.
thought he made vodka, but go ahead. Chopin.
Okay, so he was like 18 whatever, and he lived in Paris.
1810 to 1849.
He was married to the writer George Sand, who was
Oh,
a
yeah, woman, yeah.
So
Mill in the Falls. No.
they had a summer place in Mallorca, so they would go there from Paris, and he would make her move his forte piano with horse and carriage around and boats and everything else. So we feel pretty lucky that we've got like a truck. That we
You've
can
got a
just from
moving truck
Berkeley.
brought to you by
Yeah.
Berkeley Piano Movers.
Exactly.
But I didn't know. Yeah, going on vacation with piano.
Horrible. Yeah,
in the
you don't wanna do
18th
it.
century
I
or
know. Well,
17th,
he was
19th
very
century.
insistent on his.
Okay, well there you go. That's why she had to seek refuge in writing. Tell me about Clara Schumann and her circle.
Yeah, so Clara Schumann. So maybe some people know who Robert Schumann is. He's a famous composer of the classical time. And his wife was Clara.
Okay.
And she was one of the few women in the 19th century in Europe, or really anywhere, that had a huge performing career. Like she was going to Russia. She was going everywhere. She was a big star. She could play everything at the piano. But even though she had this huge career and was earning a lot of the money for their, whatever it was, 7 kids or something? They had 7 kids.
wow.
Yeah. He was composing, and he would make her be quiet in the house when he was composing because that was very important. And she was a big champion of his music. So in a way, he went down in history much more famous than she did, but she was also a composer. And so we just made this program around her life. So her husband happens to be on the program, Robert.
Okay.
He's a wonderful composer. And her friend Amanda Mayer is a Swedish composer who was a friend of Brahms. Brahms is going to be on there too. Lang, I forgot her first name.
Josephine.
Josephine Lang is another German composer at that time. So those women, including Fanny Mendelssohn on the first program, they had to really fight to get published, to get noticed, all that stuff.
Well,
'Cause
and
it
Clara
wasn't-
Schumann was one of the only ones who actually did get published under her own name.
During her time.
Yeah.
The others kind of ended up being published under their relatives'
Other
names.
people's
Yeah.
Oh,
names.
really?
Or
But-
not published at all.
That program, there's going to be a wonderful singer on it too, because
great.
some of those are songs, and there is chamber music, and there's a mezzo-soprano who's making her debut at the festival. Her name is Clara Ozovsky.
And of all the programs, that's the one that I worked hardest on in a certain sense, and I'm very proud of it because it's because
Let's talk about how well he did on the program. Yeah.
but because it tells a story of all these people's lives, and it's sort of more or less chronological, and it shows them when they're young, and then it shows them when they get older.
Okay.
And so you see how they changed over time, and a lot of things happened to them, like Schumann became ill. Robert Schumann became a little bit ill toward the end
Mentally
of
ill.
his life, mentally ill and physically ill. And Brahms came into their life, and Clara Schumann and Brahms kind of fell in love with each other. Probably nothing ever happened, but they really cared for each other. But Brahms also loved Robert Schumann, and he helped take care of the kids. And so there's a bunch of music from that exact time when Schumann was still writing music, even though his mind wasn't quite all itself, but he was writing great music still.
Okay.
And during that time, and Brahms was a young man influenced by Schumann and different music from later. And then we have some of Brahms's later music as well. And then we have their earlier music from before that. And so it'll be an interesting story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tells a story.
That sounds really interesting. That one's Sunday, July 20th.
Yeah, it is.
People there. And then you go outdoors again on Tuesday.
go outdoors
at
again.
Buena Vista Winery.
Buena Vista Winery in the courtyard.
It's a great place. They've done Shakespeare plays there. They've done award
So
ceremonies.
beautiful.
It's a nice stone kind of balcony area there and stuff. And that's
Exactly,
really
and they
good.
turn off the fountain
Yeah,
so that it's
I
not
was going to hear everyone wants to hear the cello, but that stupid fountain is just sitting there
Yes,
blaring
exactly.
away.
piano. Yeah. But in that program, that's going to be a really fun program for outdoors. There's no intermission at this concert. It's going to
Okay.
start. It says here violin and guitar in our brochure. It's actually a cello and a guitar. It's not me. It's my friend Angela Lee, who's a fantastic
Yeah, that's a
cellist.
mistake. Oops.
Yeah, and she's playing with Mark Teicholz, the guitarist. They're going to do Brazilian stuff, fun stuff.
Oh, good.
And then following that, Mendelssohn, so that is Felix Mendelssohn, wrote an octet. That means 2 string quartets together.
Okay.
So what's going to happen there is it's all of our very finest young musicians are going to come together. He wrote this when he was 16.
Oh,
He was a child prodigy.
Yeah.
This is like one of the rock and roll great pieces of all classical music,
Really?
chamber music. It's just a wild piece. It's a fantastic piece. And we're having our fellowship quartet and apprenticeship quartet coming together for that. So that's going to be really exciting.
if I wanted to look up the piece, it's just called the Mendelssohn Octet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You'll
Mendelssohn
find it
Octet.
very easily.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And the last movement is particularly exciting.
Okay.
Then we go back to the Hannah Center on a Friday night. It's our only Friday night concert. It's at 6 p.m., so
On July 25th.
come hear the amazing apprentices because they're kind of isolated on their own concert, but these guys, I remember last summer I was like, okay, this is the best concert of the whole festival, is the apprentice concert because they're so good.
They're putting their passion into it, and when you say an apprentice, these are young musicians that are trying to become professionals. Or
Yeah, they're on their way to, some of them
cases,
are already
They might already be
Yeah.
professionals. What they're really apprentices at is they're not really apprentice musicians. They're apprentice period instrument musicians.
historical
So they're
instruments.
learning from us about that, but they already kind of know how to do
They already
the
know how to
rest
play
of
the
it.
violin and stuff.
Very well,
The other
yeah.
thing is that they're younger. We've had some more experience, so we've played a lot more chamber music, so we can teach them some things about just the chamber music aspect of it, but only because they're younger than us, not because they're any less.
Right.
It's a very intergenerational, collaborative atmosphere.
I got to say, last time you were here, Eric, when you brought in that young man,
Nick, yeah.
and he
He'll
was
be
like
back this
20-something years old.
Yeah.
I don't even think he was old enough to drink. Like these are young people.
Young
Yeah.
people.
And it's great that seeing you guys playing together because
Mm-hmm.
I got that, and then they were so passionate to learn.
Yeah.
And then when he started playing, I'm like, well, I wasted my teenage years because this kid is pretty amazing.
No, they're so good. I mean, they're all coming right out of Juilliard and everything. So, like we learn from each other, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we we try to make a very experimental, explorational environment for them to like find their own voice. You know, this theme this year is Liaisons, telling a story about the composers, but it's also about the relationships between the audience and us,
Right.
between the young musicians and us, between the young musicians among themselves. The fellows are a little bit older, more established than the apprentices. They're going to be coaching the apprentices too. So there's like all kinds of interesting relationships going on.
It's smart. I do like the multi-generational and bringing them in. 'Cause
It's so, and it brings us so much joy to just pass things on and watch them. And, you know, by now in 11 years, we've had like over 50 of these apprentices come.
That's great.
So it's like a whole family out there in the world, and they know each other, and they come back to us to play again. And it's really sweet. So then there's another Saturday lecture at 2:30 and 4 p.m. concert on July 26th back at Hannah. Americans in Paris.
Yeah, I want to hear about this one
Yeah.
because when you think of Americans in Paris, and I think that is the Gershwin tune, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
And we're going to
that's
have
gonna be
it
on there.
in a fancy arrangement by Heifetz for violin that actually a cellist, not Tanya, but another cellist that's coming is going to play a version for cello.
So, but like Gershwin is modern times,
century.
20th century.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, this is like initially I'm always thinking this is you know,
Yeah.
like you said, this
Not
is
at all,
the,
no. I mean,
1800s, but
We
this is
span a lot of time. Yeah.
and so what's the theme of Americans in Paris? What does that mean?
Oh, well, like literally the Americans that were in Paris and you know, kind of a little bit like that French and German one.
Right.
You know, Paris was such an influential place for so long, and it's a place where like everybody came to
Right.
because it's just cool to be there. Like, who doesn't want to go to Paris? So you know, Gershwin, who people might know from Porgy and Bess or Summertime.
Right. He was sort of like a what's it? Is it a popular opera? What would you
Yeah,
call
it
that?
is, yeah.
like that, and very influenced by jazz. So Ravel is on this program because he wrote a violin sonata, and it has a really jazzy movement in it. It sounds just like jazz. And what's kind of famous is that Ravel called Gershwin. I don't even know if you could call back then. Maybe he telegrammed him. I don't know what he did. Certainly not fax or email.
Right.
but
Sent him a
anyway.
letter.
Yeah, sent him a carrier pigeon. He said to Gershwin in the United States, like, "Can I study with you? I just think you're so cool."
Oh.
It's the other way around.
No, Gershwin's wanted to study with Ravel,
Oh, yeah,
and
sorry.
Ravel
Wait,
said to Gershwin,
I want to study with you.
"Yeah,
Oh,
no,
really?
that's
Yeah,
right." Ravel said, "I have nothing to teach you. You should teach me, or
Yeah.
whatever."
Like
So,
a
yeah.
mutual admiration
Totally.
society.
And so,
Yeah.
and the historical roots of this. So we're going to have some jazz and some jazz influence works. We're also going to have some earlier ragtime works and works that are influenced by ragtime. And it was a whole
Scott
thing that went
Joplin.
back and a whole thing that went back and forth because when ragtime and jazz started, what was in those guys' ears were some of the French Impressionist harmonies. So they worked those into into the rest of what they were doing from the African music and everything that they were putting together, the rhythms that they brought to it. But they lose a little bit of those French harmonies. Then the French loved this new American music. They were like, we want to write like that. And then they started doing that. And it went back and forth. And they just loved each other. It was not such a matter of one side
And
influencing
you
the
know
other.
what's really fun about that concert is we're bringing in this jazz violinist named Mats Tolling, who you might have heard of. He's Grammy nominated. He's a really cool guy. He's based in the Bay Area. He plays in Sonoma sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, he is going to be making an appearance on that in an arrangement of a trio by Josephine Baker.
Oh.
So she
Wait, she wrote music
well, she did. I guess she must have
or
written it.
performed? And
Yeah.
it's, I just know she's famous for being a dancer. She right? Am I correct
Yep,
about this? The
she-
same, and she
yeah,
left
she
the United
was.
States. A lot of racism.
Yep.
Moved to France.
Paris.
Became a big deal.
Yep.
And,
yeah. So that's one of the
And
Americans
he's
in
also,
Paris.
isn't he also doing his own solo arrangement of a piece by Duke Ellington?
Exactly,
Right? Yeah.
on the same program. So
This is
Duke
interesting.
Ellington, yeah. So
Okay.
there's this huge French
What-
American.
so I know
jazz.
time frame here. Sorry, Gershwin, Ravel. What timeline roughly was that?
Okay, like
You mentioned ragtime music.
Well, ragtime music was
40.
no earlier than that.
Okay, what's the date?
So sorry.
No, I'm trying to get the phrase here, right?
no,
Yeah.
I wanted to.
I mean,
yeah.
40 would be a difficult time
mean,
to hang out in Paris.
no,
When you think about it.
You're
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I think that I think it's more like
1920?
20s.
Yeah.
20s was more
Yeah.
more
I
the
think
time. Although
ragtime
Gershwin lived till the
1910s.
40s, but
Oh, he
yeah,
did?
Yeah,
Okay.
but ragtime was in the late 19th, early 20th century, and that was the beginnings of jazz. And real jazz didn't start to appear till the teens.
Yeah, because I think ragtime was like that moving out
Yeah,
of the Gilded
exactly,
Age,
right.
and then
Yes.
Exactly.
jazz was that forbidden music.
Right.
There's
Daddy-o.
another composer on there named Milot who was a French composer, but he actually ended up here in California,
Oh,
and he taught at Mills College.
in Oakland.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a really cool guy too, who incorporated some jazz into his music. So you'll hear that too.
Okay, I'm again blown away. I thought for the longest time we are just going to sit here and talk about again the stuffy collars, and those fluffy shoes and stuff. And
I mean, you can come in a wig if you want to.
well, yeah, I've got so many of them.
You can come in the fluffy shoes, or you can come and tap dance.
Either way, it doesn't matter. Just have guts.
Ragtime,
Have
choose your
guts.
outfit.
Tell me as we get down towards the end here, July 27th, Sonoma Community Center.
Yeah, that's an
patio.
important one. 11 a.m. in the morning. This is free to kids and families and the community. Anybody of any age is going to love this concert. You're going to hear Mats Tolling, that jazz violinist. He's going to be there with the apprenticeship quartet.
Oh, because this is the next day after 26th.
right.
Okay.
Yep, doing all kinds of fun arrangements appropriate for anybody of any age.
Okay.
And definitely free community center patio.
Got it. And then the final concert.
Final concert is
Here you got your more traditional music. a little bit,
you got
but
your Haydn, you got your Mozart.
Like, okay, fine.
We'll throw that in there.
Classical stuff. But you know what's really fun about that one?
Yeah.
Because it's the very final concert. We're going to put everybody who's played in the festival all together
great.
in a kind of an orchestra-like ending.
Hold on. You're doing a jam band, aren't you?
We're doing a jam band.
No piano, so no piano.
Yeah, piano-free zone.
You've had your time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in Tchaikovsky's Serenade. And
For
that's-
real, how many people are going to be up on the stage?
I don't know. I'm thinking like maybe like 20.
No, not that. Not quite
I
that
don't
many.
know.
Like 13, something like that.
But are you going to actually have sheet music, or are you just going to point to a guy and be like, yo, chill out, rip it?
That would
No,
be
there'll
more
be
fun.
real music.
And then really important about that final day is there is a party on the patio afterwards.
Open
that
to everyone.
Everybody is invited to, where there'll be like finger food and there'll be the local winery there.
Oh, great. Okay.
And everybody's invited to that closing party, and we'll just celebrate the 11th season.
Okay. This is a great program. You've done a good job putting this all together, whoever did it. But what I really like about your festival is that when at first you think this is classical music from the outside, and that means stuffy, and that means like rich people in tuxedos. But what you guys actually do is you bring it to people. You bring it literally to places where people are. And you've done such a good job explaining the stories behind it, right? There's friendships, there's jealousies, there's mutual admiration, there's jazz. Like, that's what I love. I mean, I really do. It's like, this is an amazing festival. I think you guys do a really good job on
Thank you so much.
And I'm not just saying that because I tried to convince you to come on my podcast 3 times in a row. Before we move on, of course, the website of this is valleyofthemoonmusicfestival.org. People can buy tickets. They can probably learn about sponsorships, I imagine, if they just have a big check to write, as all my listeners do. And you can buy passes or individual tickets as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
You
so-
can get a pass to the whole festival. You can do weekend passes. There's all the stuff is on the website.
Got
of
it.
How to
And
do
if you
that.
want to have a musician in your house, I think we're all set for this year. But
Yeah.
for future years, if you're
Hosting.
hosting, is
Oh, you can
something
host
that people
musicians.
do.
Oh yeah, people all over Sonoma are doing that, and it's really fun.
That's
to
a
make
great
friends with
idea.
A musician.
Okay.
Yep, and also we are having a campaign. It's called the Crescendo Campaign, and we are 75% of the way toward our $400,000 goal. And this is to expand all of these educational things that we're doing even more and better in the next 10 years.
Right, including also some things in this possibly in the Sonoma schools, but with young people in Sonoma, we're starting to do that.
wonderful.
We've done a little bit in the schools, we've done a little bit with other young people, and we're going to keep.
Okay.
We want to keep doing
We
that.
have a little mini festival that goes to the East Coast in October, so we work with a lot of these young people again on the East Coast.
Do you call it the Valley of the Moon Music Festival? East Coast?
We call it the
East Coast edition, yeah.
Oh, you do? But you keep the term Valley of the Moon?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we should talk. I got visitor guides and maps. I could, we could figure something out.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
And we want to do something in Corsica, too, because our sponsor in New York, he's got a really nice place in Corsica. He keeps telling us about it. So I'm like,
But you know what you have to do, though? You're going to have to put his piano on a cart, and you have to put the piano on a boat, and you're going to have to get it to this island.
No, you're right.
It's going
There it is.
to be historically accurate.
You're totally right.
Yeah,
Yep, we
it's
got to
good.
do that.
It's
And
good
we'll
to
have
do
a
it.
whole Chopin.
And you're going to have to do it all because that's what
Yeah,
George
because
said.
Like, because he's just
Cheating.
busy. Like,
I'm
He's
going to.
composing. I have to be quiet. Yeah.
oh, let me ask. I don't know if I asked this last time. How did you guys get into music? Like, what happened? What happened to you in your life? What choice
that's
happened?
a problem, yeah. Well, actually, okay, so my father was a scientist, but he did music as a hobby. And
Okay.
he was actually partially a jazz musician as well. He played with some pretty good people, too. My mother was a painter, and she was also a singer and a pianist.
Oh, okay.
So she was kind of the crazy artist.
Yeah.
My father, who had the real job, always said, like, don't do it as a job. Like, it's a good hobby. Do
Right.
it as an amateur.
If you want to pay the
way to do it.
bills.
Exactly.
So of course, both of his daughters ended up being professional musicians.
Exactly.
It's the only two that
Did
children
you
he
grow
had.
up in the States, or is your dad Dutch
I
or
grew
white?
up, no, I went to Holland later for college and then
Got it.
stayed there for many years. But
Okay, but no connection to being Dutch. Like you didn't. Speak
no, I do
Dutch
have
or-
a passport. And I do speak Dutch.
Oh, you
if
do?
anybody out there speaks Dutch, I'm happy.
There is at least one listener, possibly two, I know that speak
You're
Dutch.
kidding.
No.
Oh.
Jacqueline Ploeman, she listens sometimes.
Oh.
And some other people I
Dan
know that
moet
speak
het
Dutch.
iets in het
Look at that.
Nederlands
And I just
zeggen.
saw an Omafiets parked on the plaza. There's a lady
Really?
that drives one around. Yeah. Now we're getting into bike dork stuff, which is what I
Wow.
know, Eric, and I'm sorry about that.
Bike dork is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just started piano when I was 5, and then I wanted to play violin, but my family thought it was better that I play the cello because my sister played the violin.
Oh.
And, you had to have chamber music at home, so it was better to
But there was only two. Oh, because your dad played and your mom played. So you got it. And then, Eric, how did you end up with the piano?
Well, my mother was interested in taking piano lessons again after she had some when she was a child, and she didn't want to find a babysitter for me. So she struggled at that time. It was before the Suzuki method started, and so she struggled to find a teacher who was willing to teach somebody who was only 4 years old at that time.
Right.
It's easy now.
Yeah.
But she finally found somebody, and so this teacher taught both of us. And I just loved music right away. I started wanting to read through all music that had ever been written right away.
So it's a real passion for you.
Yeah, no, and especially like looking at the music and trying to play it at sight and stuff like that. So
That's amazing.
and then it just went from there, and I just did it more and more. So
Okay. Are you guys both from the West Coast? Did you grow up here? Or did you move here?
I grew up in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
and then my family moved when I was 8
Okay.
to Mill Valley.
Oh, so you're local. Okay.
I'm not. I was born in Michigan, so but I really grew up in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, okay.
But then I went away to school in the States when I was not quite 16. So I've spent most of
You
my
kind
time.
of moved around a bit there.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know you guys live in the East Bay now, as we were
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about. And East Bay, for those who don't know, is like Berkeley, Oakland, Hayward. It's the nicest weather in the Bay Area. It's always like 65 degrees for some reason.
Yeah, it's so much hotter here today.
I
Yes,
know.
that's
Well, I
right.
always say to you guys, when it's foggy, which is
Yeah.
usually more foggy here on the San Francisco part of
Right.
the Bay, come up here because you get some sun.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
But again, my grandfather's now passed, but he's from Oakland. He's very Oakland proud, and he was always saying Oakland has the world's most perfect weather, and
and the
he would
flowers are so happy.
see as you can grow nasturtiums
Yep.
just
Exactly.
by doing nothing.
Exactly.
And they take over your yard. You
They're
want to
taking
grow
over.
lettuce?
That's right,
Not
yeah.
a problem.
I'm
Roses,
gonna
it
put
happens.
some in because they make me happy. Those
Yeah, they're great.
nasturtiums.
They're beautiful.
They're so beautiful.
Okay, before we move on, one more time, valleyofthemoonmusicfestival.org. Wait, is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
I'm gonna make sure you go there. People can get tickets. They can become sponsors. They can help with the new Corsica expansion coming soon. And there's also the East Coast one, so people aren't able to come to this one. Eventually, they can see a sampling of it,
They can.
the overture.
And we have lots of
go there.
fun house concerts during the year. Too.
Oh, and they also sponsor a musician if you have a house here.
That's right.
And want it and have it there. I have 3 cats and a couch. I don't think that would be a good place to sponsor an up and coming cellist, but I'll consider it. Yeah,
consider
and a dog that jumps on him. I'm really selling it, aren't I, Eric? That's the way it is. Okay, you guys know that you have to answer some questions. Do you know this? Do you remember this part?
Yes, I sort of vaguely
I
remember
don't
this part from
remember.
last time.
Right. So here's what happens. We have 2 visitor centers, and people call us and they text us, and they send us carrier pigeons or whatever to ask us these questions. You're going to help us answer some questions from visitors.
Okay.
Okay. The segment's called.
I can answer.
You got it. You got it. Segment's called We Get Questions. Pretty normal name there. We Get Questions.
Self-explanatory.
Yeah, I wish I got to work on that, shouldn't I?
fine.
I bet you if Eric programmed it and there'd be a backstory and there'd be like some
right.
jealousy, and then you would tell me anyway. We'll work on that. First question, and if you can ask me for help. Okay, where are some good places to hear music outdoors in Sonoma?
Oh, well, I mean, the Valley of the Moon Music Festival.
I think it's
at
a
the
great answer.
Buena Vista, yeah, Buena
Winery,
Vista
and the
Winery
La
and the
Luz
Luz
Foundation patio, which is an amazing place, too.
That is actually the correct answer.
Did we get that one right?
You got that one right.
Okay, good.
Some other places, because sometimes,
Plaza?
believe it or not, there's a couple weekends where we don't have the Valley of the Moon Music Festival. I know, we're shocked.
Yes, you can hear music in the plaza, music in place.
So you know
4
Music in
p.m.
Place.
I
Yeah,
do.
they do a great program there
Yeah,
on
they do
Sundays.
Lots of music.
And what I love about Music in Place, it's free. You can always donate and help out. But it's so diverse, the different types of music they bring in. And it's right there in that Grinstead Amphitheater, which I think is a WPA project or might be before it. But it's a really neat natural amphitheater. Not natural, they dug it out, but they put in new benches and there's these redwoods. And it's sort of like a mini Stern Grove, or at least that's what the tourism guy's saying. So I really like that one. Hot Monk Tavern, if you just want to go get a beer and a good chicken sandwich, they do have live music outside. And you can listen to the patio there. At VJB, which is a winery in Kenwood, they have opera singers. Yeah, like 2 or 3 hours. They have a guy with accordion sometimes. It's very low key on Sundays. Yeah, it's very fun. Jack Linden Lodge is a bar in Glen Ellen, and on the patio on Thursday nights, they have good music out there. So that's just free. You can go there, listen to music. And then here in Sonoma during the summer, we have what's called the Tuesday Night Market. And different bands kind of circulate through that. So that's a good one.
And the food is great.
And the food is good. Thank you. What's really funny? So they always great food, but also the corn dog guy just makes a killing. And I don't know what it is about a Tuesday night market and a corn dog. Like, it's always a big line there.
Together.
Okay, another question we got. Hi, we are classical music aficionados, and we would like to have some wine while we listen to music. What kind of wine should I drink?
While you're listening to music.
While I'm listening, not playing because that's what you would be doing.
Well, I mean, we can tout our fantastic wine partners.
Oh,
now.
who's that?
Well, there's Bartholomew.
Okay, good. And they have a beautiful park attached to it.
They
so,
do.
Yeah.
And we've actually done concerts there in that beautiful villa. There's Bar Nuns Canyon wine.
Bar Nuns Canyon wine, okay.
Award-winning. They're going to be pouring as well. We love them. There's the Idell Family Vineyards.
Okay.
And they also do beautiful wine. Who am I missing? I'm sure there's lots more wine partners.
She's waiting for an email.
Yeah, no, exactly. Grace, text me. I need our managing director.
I like that. And I'm going to say, like, if you're outside and it's a hot day, maybe like going for like a Sauvignon Blanc.
White.
Chilled,
Yeah, it just seems white wine.
Just something chilled white. Actually, you probably don't want red wine because I'm going to spill it on my fancy outfit.
Right? Yeah,
White
there you go,
linen.
yeah.
On the white linen. But if you're doing chamber music and it's winter, and maybe there's some good. Oh, maybe was Vivaldi chamber music, or am I mixing that up?
He can be.
The Four Seasons. What's that?
Four Seasons is kind of orchestra.
So I could literally put wine with every one of those seasons.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh! Oh, is that your time frame, or is that a different time frame?
No, I mean,
We actually did the Four Seasons out at that beautiful park.
Really?
Yes, the
Bart
Ecology
Park?
Center collaborated
Oh,
with us.
okay.
It was Sugarloaf.
Sugar.
That's right. You guys were up there in the hill.
We've been to Sugarloaf. Yeah,
That's amazing.
That's a
up there.
nice place.
So beautiful.
And
And
yeah.
we did the Four Seasons up
So with the wines up there, you could just do like, for example, like a summer the chilled Chardonnay.
Yeah.
In the fall, you could do like a Pinot or something like that. In the winter, you could do a Cabernet.
There you go.
And in the spring, bring out the Rosé or something like that. So
Perfect.
that was good.
Perfect
Good
pairing.
answer.
Yeah. And I would suggest if you're thinking about what kind of wines to drink at our concerts, some things like the Wagner probably better, like really
Oh, a
dark
big-
red wine.
yeah.
Yeah. Then once the
French
Debussy comes
music,
around, if you like the
you're gonna
Debussy
wanna
better than
get
the
something
white
light,
wine.
Sauvignon
yeah.
I like that. Oh my gosh, you guys should totally do that. And the
Pairing with the pieces. You
yeah,
could have recommended wine under every
you
piece.
absolutely could do this.
Yeah.
And when it's the jazz daddy-o, we'd have a flask.
Right. Yes. Exactly. I was thinking of hard alcohol for that.
Yeah,
but, yeah,
I like that.
Oh my. Okay, we'll work on
on
that
that.
next.
Yeah, let's talk about that
for
later.
12th episode of
Yeah,
the thing there. Okay, final question. They come up, they ask us all sorts of questions. Right. This is weird. I don't know why they do this. I don't know why they asked me this today. I'm thinking of starting a musical career. Should I start with cello or should I start with piano?
Oh, well, that's pretty
gonna have a fight
easy.
about that?
No, you got to start with piano.
No, we both think you should start with piano, and then you can play a string instrument. Play piano a little while, and then
If you live with anybody, you do not want to start on a stringed instrument and inflict that on your sister, your mother, or your partner. Parent.
Mentioned the Suzuki method.
Yeah.
Yes, I've survived. Yes.
There you go. And were you playing too? 'Cause you have
No, we were encouraging.
Yes.
My wife plays piano.
Oh, okay.
So we had that going. But when my daughter, when she was like, she would do like this thing with spin the arm
And
and
you got to
whatever.
walk around. And,
Yes, and there was a lot of squealing, and that was great.
Yeah,
but
that's
but
the
I,
thing.
and again, I feel bad for my parents who are listening. Thanks for listening. When I was learning saxophone,
oh yeah,
that was rough.
Yeah, that would be
saxophone.
rough.
You got to get the aperture correct, or aperture, whatever they call it. On the
Embouchure.
embouchure. Thank
Embouchure.
you. That might be the problem. I was doing photography while doing saxophone. That might have been my problem.
Amateur or
Whatever.
But
Yeah.
seriously, the reason that the piano is good to start with is
Yes.
because you play all the harmony, the counterpoint, everything. You get to know the structure of the music first, and also, it is a little bit easier, and you get to
The sound is- you don't have to worry
so
about
You get
anything.
immediate
then you
feedback.
Push a
have that.
button.
Yeah.
Then
Button
you
push.
then it's probably because I think people do it all different ways, of course.
Right.
But when there's a lot of advantages to starting a little bit with piano, then you can give it up later and do something else.
And do something else. I like that. And I think that's so. It is amazing. Someone walked up and asked me that today. What are the odds that you guys are going to be in here? They asked me that. And I think if you do learn the piano, you might soon discover that there's like 98 keys. Like maybe you're just going to keep expanding.
Yeah, you can
10
get
more.
it by a Busendorfer. It has
Why not?
that many. Yeah.
You could order your own piano with more keys.
And then write your own festival. You can
Exactly.
do it all there. Guys, this is it. You've been wonderful.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
fantastic.
so much.
You did it. Just one more time, give me the website if people want more information.
valleyofthemoonmusicfestival.org. All the information is on there. It's July 12th to July 27th. There's alfresco concerts. Most of the concerts are 4 p.m. on the weekends in the Hanna Center Auditorium.
Fantastic. And after you've done that, and after you've given a donation, then go to sonomavalley.com for deals, special offers, events, and find out some other music to play after you're done with Valley of the Moon Music Festival. Tanya, Eric, thank you so much for being on.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tim.
Tim.
Yeah.
You bet. Mom and Dad, thanks for listening. See you guys soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.